Great. All right, so this is the typical question, okay? And every other question you'll do is sort of based off the way that this works, all right? So, write out the expansion for this. Now, you have to sort of be careful of this x squared, right? So, each term that I'm going to have will be x squared to the 5, and x squared to the 4. So, it's going to be x squared, x to the 4, x to the 6, x to the 8, and the biggest one will be x to the 10, okay? Just be careful how your indices work. Right, so let's actually write it out in long form. Well, they do want the whole expansion, yeah? So, let's think back to how this general form works, okay? I got taught this first, and then someone told me this at uni, okay? So my brain kind of exploded. But if you find this difficult to wrap your head around, come back to what it means, okay? That it's about arrangements, okay? But you want to actually want to solve a problem, this is the fastest way. So, n choose 0. What does the n correspond to? In this case, it's 5, right? 5 choose 0. Now what's the first term? It's a to the n. Now I know that's confusing because we've got a's here and a's there, but it's this first term in the binomial, okay, which in this case is x squared. So I'm going to go x squared, that's the power of 5. Okay? Now, it starts off hard, but when you get the pattern going, it's really easy, okay? The next one is 5 choose 1, okay? How many x squareds do I have? One less, right? And then I need to bring in one of the other guy, right? I'm running out of room, but the next one, 5 choose 2. How many x squareds are there? One less, that's 3. And how many a's are there? One more, that's 2. Okay, let's finish this off. 5 choose 3. 5 choose 4. And 5 choose 5. One of the cool things about doing questions like this is that if you do it right, it sort of fixes up any errors that you might get on its own, because it's really obvious when you look at the numbers and how they expand. Okay? All right, now let's actually do this. 5 choose 0. Anything choose 0, right? You've got a group and you're picking none of them. There's only ever one way, right? Which corresponds to the fact that this thing is monic. Yeah. So it's just x to the 10 out the front. Okay. Now, 5 choose 1. How many ways? 5. It's like, well, which one? Okay. So it sort of clues you into which row of Pascal's triangle are you going to be using, and eventually you'll start to get very familiar with the first few rows because they get used so often. Okay. That's going to be x to the 8a. Okay. Now, maybe you don't know this 5 choose 2 quite as well, so get your calculator out, okay? And there's no shame in it, because later on, it's going to be crazy numbers like 10, 15, 20, okay? So you're going to need your calculator, and say 5C2, 5C2, okay? 10, x to the 6a squared. Okay, now, here's one of the cool things, right? Remember, the 5 choose 2 and 5 choose 3 are the same, right? Because 2 and 3, they add up to 5, okay? So therefore, once you get to this point, just like in Pascal's triangle, you can just take those same coefficients and then do them in reverse, okay? So the next one's going to be 10 x to the 4 a cubed. And then back down to 5. And then lastly, you've got 1, as you would expect. Okay? Okay, now it starts to get a little tricky, and there are just lots of errors that creep in, silly mistakes, when you start to put in extra numbers in here, okay? So for instance, question 2 says 2x plus 3y to the 4, okay? Now, I've already got the coefficients that we need written up here, okay, but you could verify them as 4 choose 0, 4 choose 1, 4 choose 2, and so on. But I'm just going to use them, and let's be careful how we do this, okay? I'm gonna skip this 5 choose 0, 5 choose 1, 5 choose 2 step, because I think the number is so low, okay, and also because I'm a bit lazy with my writing. But how do we start off? First coefficient is just 1, and then you've got this guy and 4 lots of him, right? So you've got to be really crazy careful with your brackets, yeah? Don't write 2x to the 4. It's got to be 2x to the 4. All right. Next coefficient is 4. And how many of this guy have you got? 1 less. And how many of this guy have you got? 1 more. Okay. Next coefficient is 6. And then the pattern continues. Now you can see where, when you're rushing in the exam, how easy it's going to be to make little errors with these things, okay? Which is why you got to be careful with your brackets. Plus 4 plus 1. Okay? Now you're going to have to actually write all this out, right? So 2 to the 4 is 16. 2 cubed is 8. Times 4 is 32. Times 3 is 96. Yeah, you guys have calculators, so you can do this. You don't have to deal with what I'm doing. 6 times 2 squared is 6 times 4, which is 24. Times 9. Uh-oh. That's 240 minus 24. That's 216. How am I doing so far? Just barely surviving, okay? Now, 4 times 2 is 8. I can manage that one. 3 cubed is 27. 8 times 27, far out. Okay, that's 270 minus 54, right? Is that 216 again?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's convenient. And then 3 to the 4 is 81. Okay. Ta-da! So there's a binomial expansion, right? Now, you remember I said when you're doing the whole expansion, it's kind of nice because going through all the steps will sort of save you from any errors, okay? But if you cast your eyes down the sheet a little further, okay, sometimes all they will ask for is, well, number one, they'll make this power crazy. They'll make it like 40, 50, whatever, okay? And then they'll say, now just give me this term, okay? They'll say, what's the coefficient of this particular one? Or what's the 9th term? So you actually have to go straight to here. You're doing yourself a disservice if you actually write out the whole thing, because as you can see, number 1, time consuming, number 2, error prone, okay? So when you've got those kinds of questions, find this term, or just find the coefficient of that term, you're gonna have to get used to using these guys, okay? So I think the trickiest thing which I had trouble with was you gotta start counting from 0, right? The first term has 4, n choose 0. The second term is n choose 1, and so on, okay? All right, I've taken up almost the